Welcome to Distance Learning with Common Sense. Today's title is Building Self-Worth and Communication Skills in Our Students. Thank you for being here today. I know these are really trying times, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that this will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. So if you miss any part of it or need to leave a little early, or if you want to catch any of our other distance learning chats, you can visit us there. I also want to let you know that my name is Vicki Saylor, and I am the Regional Manager here in Arizona for Common Sense Education. Today, we have a very special guest with us. His name is Adam Lee Brooks, and he is a nationally known author, speaker, and educator. I will turn it over to him now and let him tell us a little bit about himself. Welcome, Adam. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm well. I'm excited to be here. I never wanted to be a teacher. I was a twice exceptional student. I was gifted, but I had ADHD, and I was every teacher's worst nightmare. And so I knew when I became a teacher, I was going to get all of that back tenfold. I taught high school. I was a director of special ed for about 12 years. I've worked as a college professor for the last 10, teaching communication and future teachers in intro to special education. So I've definitely gotten all that back, but I've found a great place to work with kids. So yeah.
And you go around to schools and other organizations and talk to kids directly, right? And you work with parents and teachers.
Yeah, my bachelor's degree was in public speaking or speech communications, and I got a master's in leadership before I really knew what I wanted to do. So then when I went back and got my other degree, my other master's in special education, I became a teacher, and I was hiring speakers to come talk to my students, to come talk to my kids, and I realized they were just missing the mark a little bit. And so I became a speaker because the two things that I really wanted to press upon families and kids is that we all know what it's like to hate our own skin at times, and we all know what it's like to feel all alone. And that's something that everybody can relate to. So that's what I wanted to talk to kids about. I didn't want to talk about, drugs, alcohol, those are all important topics. But really, if you communicate to yourself really well, then you can communicate to each other really well, and you realize you don't deserve those things anyway. So really trying to build that self-worth amongst kids, which kind of became my passion. And then it got so busy that I actually left teaching full-time to do speaking and consulting for schools, for families, even for companies, full-time.
Another thing you talk about is communicating and the lack of communication skills our kids have, or maybe even communicating negatively with one another. What do you think contributes to that?
Well, if I'm being really honest,
Yes, please be honest.
Yeah, I know. Can I lie?
No.
We do. We are the ones who've kind of caused this kind of mentality. I mean, it's interesting. We had this bully epidemic, right? Where we had kids bullying other kids, and it was real, but really Dr. Michelle Borba out of Stanford wrote a book called Unselfie. And she talks about kids being 40% less empathetic today than they were 20 years ago. And what's interesting about that fact is it really kind of, for me, I noticed it during the reality television generation, where we saw reality television come out. We were all watching American Idol, and our favorite parts of American Idol were when the first couple episodes, when we were making fun of all the singers, and we were like, boo, they're terrible. Oh, look how bad they are. And we loved the conflict. And yet our kids were going to school the next day, and they were voting other kids off the playground.
Yeah.
And for me, that was really translated into, we as a society are teaching people that empathy isn't popular. Empathy isn't cool. Empathy is hard and it's difficult. So I think that started it, but it's gotten even worse with digital media. 85% of our kids get their news and information from YouTube. So our kids are being educated by YouTube. So their makeup is on point. They know how to contour, but they can't have a conversation. They don't know how to have social skills and communication skills. So that's what I'm trying to reinstill, because YouTube isn't the problem. It's that we've just stepped back and allow it to take over. That's the problem.
And that's what we do best here at Common Sense, right? We help kids try to think critically, and you're so right in saying that media is such a powerful influence on our kids. You touched earlier on a point. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something else?
No, I was going to say, I noticed the difference whenever I asked kids to get their reading books out and they started pulling out Kindles. They started pulling out like their phones to read books. And I was like, I don't remember any of this as a kid, right?
Yeah.
I had to hide notes to girls in regular chapter books like everybody else when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I wish my kids knew about that. I want to go back to what you said about the self-talk, the things that we tell ourselves, because I think that not only kids do that, I think adults do that. I know I do that. And we hear, we hear of confidence also, and confidence breeds success, but then when you hear success breeds confidence, so which comes first? They're both important. But like, how do we help them? How do we, get them not talking negatively to themselves and talking more positively?
So we've had a problem in our country just about the definition of confidence, in my opinion. We've confused confidence with arrogance a lot, and I think there's a really big difference. Confidence says, I'm amazing. Arrogance says, I'm more amazing than you. And the only difference is adding that other comparison. And yet, what's interesting is when we have social media, when we're passively on our device, right? We're just scrolling, we're looking at TikTok, looking at Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever it is, that just starts to speak and just etch away at our confidence. I follow CrossFit athletes on my Instagram, and let me tell you, it's really hard to feel confident when you're looking at some dude doing pull-ups and it's making me want to eat the entire pizza, right? Like, and I have a fully grown brain. I'm an adult. And yet our kids with half a brain are seeing this and they're thinking, I got to be like that. I got to be like that. I got to be like that. And so it really does just etch away at our confidence more than ever before. I mean, when I was a kid, it was okay to be 14 and have a makeup line if you were, you wore makeup, right? Because you didn't know how to blend yet. That was normal. It was normal to wear jellies. It was normal to
Jellies are
have
cool.
the two crazy, yeah, exactly. To have all the different hair ties on your arms and stuff. And now it's really cool to be perfect.
You bring up a really good point about the whole watching YouTube videos or TikTok and seeing things. I always want to try to be fit and exercise for my health. And I subscribe to this one channel that, these people are doing these exercises and it's so great. And I just sit there and watch them because I'm like, oh, I could never do that. So you're right. I need to stop.
I'm just eating M&Ms going, man, that looks hard. Boo. And the reality is that anytime we're obsessive or even passively looking at this, there's no way it's not going to etch a little bit into our brain, right?
Yeah.
And so at some point we're looking at our own stuff going, man, my stuff's just not as cool and that was one of the reasons why people were really excited about Instagram taking away seeing how many people liked different posts, the numbers, because they thought it would even the playing field. But I think there were some alternative reasons they did that, some monetary reasons for themselves, but yeah.
So right now with distance learning, I'm hearing a lot of teachers feeling this way too. And it's breaking my heart because I'm a teacher and I have so many friends and family who are teachers, and they're feeling like that. They're seeing all these educators come up with these really great innovative ways to reach their kids and, these great websites or this Bitmoji classroom, and they're feeling a little insecure. Some of the teachers who might not be really techy, they're feeling the same way. Are there ways we can help teachers learn how to engage these students with distance learning? Are there tools? Are there ideas? Can you give us some?
Yeah, actually, I just kind of glanced over at the chat because it's in the corner of my eye, and Estelle, I know I'm probably not allowed to say it, but somebody just mentioned it's human nature to compare yourself. And even as teachers, you're exactly right. I mean, I taught for 12 years in special education. If I try to run my special ed class, my resource class, my self-contained class like somebody else did, it would just be inauthentic. So there is this idea that even online, kids are craving genuine authenticity. It's okay to be up there and say, guys, I'm figuring it out. Let's figure it out. What's not okay is to stand up there with negativity and to be on screen. So really showing up with positive role modeling and positive behaviors. We don't have any choice about virtual right now. So being able to just show up and say, guys, let's figure it out. Let's do our best. I think just that positive motivation, I think will take you a lot longer or a lot further along than just saying, guys, doesn't this stink? Oh, how sad that we have to do. They already know. They don't need that. There's already enough negativity going their way. If you are the only positive face they see that day, that's huge. That's huge. So that's just an overall attitude, right? First of all.
Right.
But then I think
totally.
there's tools like, for me, it's things like being able to utilize technology to your benefit. So why are we not showing other teachers who are teaching amazing lessons, sending those to our students and then having a dialogue with them? Is it not just jumping off screen, on screen, off screen, on screen? Is it making this presentation dynamic? Is it, I just talked to a friend of mine who's a kindergarten teacher, and she dresses up every day in different outfits. And then she'll ask kids like, all right, what character do I look like today? Or what do I remind you of? And it's just such a different, interesting way to do it. There's tools out there. Like I follow, there's a really great AP English teacher I follow on Instagram called Mud and Ink Teacher. And she just got some really cool lessons and some cool discussions to have with our students. I think having students lead interactions during this time is huge because their problem isn't technology. Their problem is communication, right?
Right.
So letting them be in charge of certain stuff, I think is going to go a long way during this time if you can't.
Well, right. And maybe like you were talking to me earlier this week and you were mentioning like breakout rooms and we were going back and forth with different apps. I know a lot of teachers right now are using Flipgrid to engage students. They're using Jamboard, which is really cool. And I'm just learning to use it myself. It's like an interactive whiteboard. Super cool.
Nearpod is another great.
Yeah. Nearpod. You mentioned the confidence. I want to go back to that because I think if our kids are confident, then I think they'll be more successful, right? And then I think if they're successful, they'll be more confident. So you said something really great right now about giving them the reins, like giving them ownership. So, sometimes we give them tasks that are too hard. So should we give them like attainable tasks and that way they have success and then that breeds confidence and letting them own a lesson or lead a lesson like you were saying?
Right. So I think the biggest struggle I see in our world right now is that, and that's really dramatic, so I apologize. I understand I'm being dramatic. But we want to remove every obstacle from our kids' paths because we're worried about them. We want them to be okay. We can talk about the emotional things that are going on right now, but we really want to challenge them as little as possible because we're worried about the impacts of this. And from what I've seen, a lot of our kids are super resilient. They've got a ton of grit. So it's okay to give them difficult tasks as long as you support them. What you don't want to do is give them difficult tasks and be like, see you later, good luck, don't get a bad grade. You know what I mean? It's about giving them a difficult task and then saying, let's try it. What are we doing? How's it going? Where are you at? What are you confused about? Putting it back on them and having them take ownership of the problem instead of us saying, move, and then we help them solve it. That's not teaching them anything. And yet we've come to this style of education, this style of parenting, where it's like, I want to make their lives better than mine. So I want to remove all the obstacles. And the reality is kids need obstacles put into their path if they're going to have a successful adult career in life. Right. So it's about giving them manageable tasks that might be difficult, but then coaching on the sidelines.
You're absolutely right. And I'm guilty of that as a parent too. I think they call us like lawnmower parents, like you want to pave the way. So I have to step back a lot of the times and let them figure it out. It's hard, as a parent and as a teacher, you want to have successful students because you know what they're maybe going through with their social emotional learning.
But listen,
so you make some really good points.
I talked to this friend of mine who's a CEO of a company. He's crushing it in life. And he's like, I just want my kid to have it better than me. So I bought him a car. I paid for his college. I did all this stuff. And he doesn't seem to care about it. And I said, because he didn't have the upbringing you had. You are the way you are because of how you grew up, whether it was tough, whether it was easy, whatever it was. And
Right.
so when we remove what you had that was tough growing up for your kid, now it's going to be a completely different childhood, which isn't bad, but with that comes unintended consequences, right?
Right.
And same
Right.
thing in education. When we are worried that virtual learning is going to be too hard for our kids, now we're actually not giving them a chance to like have some of that grit and resiliency that honestly they really need.
Yeah, and teachers, like you said, be a good role model. This is hard for teachers. They've never taught like this. And
Right.
so if you get up there and you're like, this really stinks, I don't know what I'm doing, get up there and be positive. Like, you know what?
Right.
I really don't know what I'm doing, but I'm excited to learn something new, because as teachers, you're a lifelong learner. You want to instill that in your kids and your students as well. So letting them know that you don't feel okay, and that's okay. I'm feeling a little insecure right now, but I'm gonna try. And this word fail, like if I fail, it's okay. There's no failure, right? We learn from our mistakes. We move on. We grow.
And you know what we call that?
What?
Being a role model.
Being a role. I know.
We're role modeling that it's okay to not be okay. We're role modeling to show up and say, guys, I'm going to try my best. I have to teach geometry from here. I'm going to do it on this. I'm going to take down my beautiful forest and let my mirror closets be here. And I'm going to draw on them and I'm going to write on them. And I'm going to do my best. And that's okay, because that's all I'm asking of you is to give your best to me.
Right.
And so if we're role modeling that, then it's going to be way more successful. It's about not being somebody else.
Right. And this is what I can do right now. And I'm doing the best I can. And
it's also about baby steps. My favorite movie is What About Bob, right? Because life is all about baby steps. It's like, I'm just going to take, you know what? I'm going to do one lesson. All right. I'm going to do two lessons. I'm just going to keep chipping away, and I'm just going to show up every day. And that's what we ask kids to do. Kids don't know the lessons each day. So it's okay that we're coming to it, trying to figure it out. We ask them to come work hard, and all we need to do is just show up and say, I'm going to do my best.
Yeah. So much great information. You talk about connecting with kids, and right now it's so difficult, right? Because it's online, and also for kids to interact and connect with each other.
Mm-hmm.
You said something about checking in with them to me this week, have checking, like get to know their family. Like, can you talk about that? Like, what are some really great ideas? Because sometimes I feel like we all have the same ideas. Like, is there anything else?
I mean, there's the consistent, like, easy ideas, right? Like doing show and tell, where you go get something read in your house and bring it over here and show everybody. You've got things like using the students' names consistently. You've got things like having the bell work be like, what are you proud of this week that you were able to accomplish? Those kind of things. But those are things that have always kind of been there. So when we talk about virtual, we really have to start stepping it to that next level. So whether it's things like, hey, this is my favorite quote, what do you think it means? And just kind of getting under the surface, breaking through, because right now we're all here and we're like, here, fine, got it, thanks. So breaking through that surface to something a little bit deeper, having more comprehension-based questions, having more critical reasoning questions right now is actually going to be more important. So making sure that those are there is going to be huge. I do think that communication with the family, more than ever, we should be calling home right now, because we just want to check in and say, are you okay? What can I do? How's it been going? We used to not want to call home. As a teacher, I never wanted to call home, because it was usually because something bad happened, right? Yeah. And I didn't know how it was going to go. The parent might blame me. The parent might, be really mad at the kid. And so I was like, what do I do? So now I'm calling home just to say, hi, are you guys okay? Because if we're being honest, a parent has more than one kid, and sometimes they have more than one kid at different schools. And now we've got 8 teachers from each kid emailing the parents, and they've got just files and files of information in their emails, right? That that's not even the work they have to do. This is a whole second job. So now it's at the situation where sometimes I just want to call and say, tell me what's going on. Doing a Facebook Live, starting a Facebook fan page for your teaching, and then going live and just being there to answer questions and just being there to say, I get it. I hear you. This is what I can do. This is what I can fix. This is how I can listen this way. I think is important. One of the best things about me being a public speaker is that I was a teacher first. So I get it. When I go into schools, I know what kids are learning, what they're dealing with. And so it's really interesting. And right now they're at home, so they're learning different things. But technology is not something that they're learning. They've already had that down. What they're learning is not being in the same room as their friends, even though they weren't always communicating well back then either. But now it's even more disconnected, and we have to work twice as hard to build that connection.
Right. Well, I don't want to take up all the time because I'm sure there are a lot of questions and I want to make sure that we get to those. So do you have any last words for our audience before we take some questions?
For me, this is about, so many of us, and me included, I have found my self-worth in being a teacher. And so now I am a different kind of teacher. And it's easy to lose that self-worth at this point. And so it's easy to feel like we stink at online, we stink at virtual. And so it's really about how do we redefine our self-worth so that we can then fill in with our kids' self-worth. So if you as a teacher are struggling with that, man, pour into yourself. This is a perfect time to pour in. And I mean like eating well, working out, getting sleep, all the stuff that we want our kids to do, we have to be doing as teachers right now because our stress level, our anxiety level, even our depression levels are just increasing around the country for our families, our kids, and ourselves. So we have to take care of ourselves as a way to role model how our kids need to take care of themselves.
I love this. I could talk to you all day, but I want other people to be able to ask.
I don't really have any other plans after this. So.
Okay, well, hey, let's go to lunch. So again, this will be posted to our YouTube channel. So check us out there, but I want to know if we have any questions. Do we have any questions that maybe Adam can answer live?
Yeah. Hey, Adam, we got one question that came in from Karina. And the question is, can you comment on requiring students to have their camera on? I understand the issues are on equity and kids being embarrassed, but it's so hard to get to know kids without them. Any thoughts?
Yeah, and actually we have some problems here in Phoenix with cameras on simply because of Wi-Fi. And if every kid has their camera on, everyone's Wi-Fi just kind of like breaks down because they're all in the same neighborhood and they have some issues with that. So one thing that I've been suggesting to battle that is whenever I call your name, turn your camera on, respond to me, and then you turn your camera off for the next person so that I'm able to focus one at a time on those kids. That's also one thing I also suggest is when you're doing tests and stuff, or self-guided projects, you can put them all in individual breakout rooms, all 30 of them, and then you can just go in and float and check on them all. And that seems to be a really kind of cool, interesting way to use technology. So I always recommend just one at a time because sometimes that can be tough. It is hard when you have equity and there's stuff going on behind you, but at least it doesn't have to be the whole time. So you can limit the time, or you can actually really have one-on-one conversations with the family. That's why calling home is important. And then you can say, all right, well, let's come up with a separate plan, right? I'll meet them in a breakout room or whatever. So there's ways that we can figure it out, I think.
Yeah. And I think, it is different for a lot of different districts. They have different rules. Some don't allow their kids to be online. Some kids are embarrassed. So just making sure that we have an opportunity for different types of activities, and teachers, like you said, dive into it. You know what you're doing. Teachers know what they're doing.
And if you can make your own class virtual background that you can send to all your students so they're all the same, maybe it changes every day or changes every week. That might be an option too, right?
Yeah, because a lot of kids don't want you to see what's behind them.
Completely. And I get it. There's a reason why this is the only place in the house I use for this. I don't want you guys to see my dishes. Just kidding.
Yeah. Or my husband walking back and forth.
Yeah, exactly.
Hoping he has pants on, not, his pajama bottoms.
Robes for everybody.
Yeah, robe for everybody. Cool.
So,
I want to respect. Go ahead.
Oh, no, just say one more question and then we're going to have to wrap up.
Okay.
But this is from Jen Lowe. How can kids get to know each other and make friends in a long distance environment? How can they learn to communicate? Especially, as I think about just kind of my own kids and knowing that they've got some moments where they're just all talking over each other before class starts. But how do you actually extend opportunities to really make friends or deepen friendships when you don't have a classroom space?
So actually, I think Vicki and I were talking about this earlier this week, like stepping away from the camera, starting class and maybe finishing either early or giving extended time, and then letting the class just kind of chat without you sitting there trying to lead a discussion. I think having a little like Zoom party, or like a little, I'm recommending to parents like to have Zoom events where kids can go and talk. When this whole COVID thing happened, I did Zoom karaoke with some friends in California and in Indiana and in all over the country. And we just were singing and doing different things. So there's interesting concepts you can do, but sometimes it's good for the teacher just to step aside, even just turn their camera off and just let the kids, or pose a question, turn your camera off and just watch the kids talk to each other, setting up chats, but having them do that. Breakout sessions for different discussion groups. And the breakout sessions you can do on Google Teams, Zoom. I've never used WebEx, so I don't know much about that. But there's different ways you can do it. And I just end up Googling how to set up a room, how to set up a chat. And I'm just Googling everything right now. And
Yeah.
I'm able to figure it out.
Well, yeah, and I think you made a good point with the breakout rooms, and some people will say, oh, well, they don't allow us to do that. They're doing it they're doing it outside of school. So these are the ideas that you can give them so that when they walk away, here are some ideas you can do after school, like if you're not allowed to do it, on school hours. But I think it all goes back to, like you said, increasing that empathy in our kids so that they're able to make friendships and maybe befriend somebody who otherwise they might have not, because of other outside pressures. So,
well, and let's be clear, are kids going to say something they shouldn't say? Yes. Are kids going to act out? Yes. They're kids. They're looking for boundaries because they also did that in my classroom. And that's not anything new. So yeah.
Wow. So, well, thank you. I want to respect everybody's time. I want to remind you that next week we have a distance learning chat with some of our, with some of my colleagues from Common Sense, and they will be sharing distance learning resources. So don't miss that. And anyways, thanks for being here. Thank you, Adam.
Yes,
and
you're welcome.
Go get them, everybody. You got this.